So I walked down to my office and just a mouse just like splayed out.
Oh, good.
Shit.
Not
Alive or
alive.
dead?
No. Like
Oh, that's worse. Is that worse or better? I don't think that's worse.
I think it's better because I've had to like track them down. This office is such a mess that he wouldn't have to go far to like disappear behind some clutter, which would make me crazy. But there's never just one.
There was a dead rat up the street from me the other day, and my neighbor sent me a photo, and I was like, that's not the type of animals I like to see. I don't want to see a dead rat.
Okay. I don't know what side of the algorithm I'm on. I'm sure it was TikTok because that's the one that's unhinged. Rat throwing. Did you know that is a thing?
Like live?
No, they were real dead. There was the sweetest, like angelic little child, and her mother was like, "You got this, honey," and she's literally holding this like nasty rat by the tail, like swinging it, and there's all these people watching, and it's like 1, 2, and then she didn't do great, but she threw it, and everyone. I don't know what part of the world, what country, who does this, but
I feel like if we did that here, we'd get like X'd off Instagram.
Welcome to Just for Moms. I'm Charlotte.
I'm Caitlin.
I'm Megan.
And I'm Kallie. We are regular moms
talking about regular stuff
like aging, parenthood,
work-life balance,
and figuring out what's for dinner. Again.
A no judgment zone to talk, laugh,
and maybe cry about all the things women think about on a daily basis.
Okay, should we go? Are we ready?
Yep. Ready.
Okay. Just for Moms here. Megan, Charlotte, Kallie, and Caitlin, we're all here.
Ooh, roll call.
This is when the Brady Bunch thing would be so cool.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyways, so how is everyone? Everyone's happy that the sun's out longer?
60 degrees, baby.
Mm-hmm. I feel like a new woman, although I almost didn't make it here. I was carrying everything down the stairs, and I was like, it would be so sad if I tripped and fell. And then my laptop battery fell and hit my foot, and like I kind of stumbled, and I was like, whew, I'm okay. And then I had to run upstairs and grab something else, and I slid across one of the rugs in my house, and I was like, that's 2 times. If I go up again, it's going to be the 3rd, and I'm going to wipe out, and then I wouldn't be here.
Do you have nanny cams? You know how some people have cameras all over their house?
No. Sadly, I don't.
Sorry.
Did you have socks on too on the stairs?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know.
That'll get you.
Good. So I wanted to ask you all, apparently I do this and people don't like it. When you're texting or messaging someone and you just, let's say I send a reel to Charlotte or Charlotte sends me a reel and we're waiting for her response, my response, and all you write is LOL. I didn't realize this, but I've been seeing it all over social media. LOL is like an annoying response. People have a problem with it, and you're not supposed to do it.
In what generation? Because I'm fine with it.
I know. That's what I thought. I've been seeing more like discussion about it, more reels, and you're not supposed to write LOL. And I do it all day long when I speak even to people and it's not sending a reel. I LOL, like, I don't understand. I guess we're not supposed to do it. Do you do it, Charlotte? Do you respond to LOL? No.
No, but I never have. I'm not the LOL generation.
Okay. Kallie, do you respond to LOL if I sent you a funny real meme? Do you?
Yeah, I LOL.
Okay.
I mean, maybe I'm starting to just like things more now that we have that option, but no, I'm
okay.
I mean, I heard at one point that saying LOL just makes you old, but whatever.
Okay.
Listen, some habits die hard.
Okay, Caitlin, do you respond to LOL?
I'm usually like a face. Like I like the emoji with like this.
But does anyone else think it's rude?
No.
Like if you got an LOL.
Some people have a problem with it. I've been learning here.
It's rude if you send something that's not funny and someone writes back LOL, because then I'm like, you didn't watch it. It's not funny. You just hurt my feelings.
I would probably just double tap the thing and not even text back. I know you still get a notification. And then if I wanted to communicate that I had in fact laughed out loud, I would probably just do haha. That's my version of. Do you guys have automatic keystrokes set up in your phones?
No.
So I have a handful for responding to comments, and haha happens to be one of them. So if I just do an HH, it automatically populates. If I do a TY, it automatically populates thank you. So I do have a handful of things that I'm used to writing because I can do it real quick.
Got it.
And
Okay.
I could set up an LOL one. I just don't use that one.
Yeah.
It's
No,
not that hard, you know. I mean,
apparently that's the way to do it, Charlotte. So good job.
keystrokes.
I'm so much older that I've looped around to being like fresh.
We should all just change our keystroke from LOL to be something else. Like, that was so funny, I am laughing out loud.
Or the skulls dead.
So now in our 4-person group chain text, no more LOLs for Megan. I'm gonna
call you
prove
up.
that I'm not that person. Okay.
For a hot second, I thought Caitlin was just drinking a natty light there.
Yeah, I got a vodka right
She's
here.
got a
and I
polar.
got a beer right here.
She's got a polar seltzer, but like for just a second, I was like, is she drinking just a beer? No. Okay.
The sun made me feel like I needed
Yeah, right. Okay. So moving on to mom fails. Every week, if we've had one or not had one, I feel like I have one every day. I'm going to go first. I have a moldy, disgusting washer. It's a huge mom fail. I'm so embarrassed. That's mine. Charlotte, what's yours?
So I think my Google, we were just talking about this last episode. My Google Drive app is not talking to my desktop. I think I put that I have a couple kids who claim to put on deodorant. Do I say this every week and they never do?
Yes.
It makes me crazy. I've said it before.
Well, last week we talked about smelly kids. Yeah.
Okay. It's just the same thing. Like I just will look over and I'm like, what am I doing wrong here? So it's old news, but that's it.
Okay. Callie?
I have one. So the other day we were driving in the car and my daughter noticed that there was a man running on the street and he was running without a shirt on, which is a normal thing for a man to, and she commented on it. And I was like, yeah, it's probably hot out. But then I realized she commented on it because we have to have a lot of discussions in the house about why you have to put your clothes on. And so she was kind of like, wait, how come it's okay that this man doesn't have his clothes on? And I failed in the moment. Like, I feel like I could have done it so much better. But like, you know how sometimes you're just caught off guard by these like kind of important conversations? And it just like it was the end of the day, school pickup, like nothing was coming to me about like how to properly have this discussion with my daughter about why men cannot have shorts on and women can't. And also just like, and my brain was fried, but part of me was like, why can't we just take our shirts off? You know, but it was just a mom fail. Like I could have handled it so much better and I didn't. So
I have one.
An answer or a fail?
No, I have a fail.
Oh,
And I always say I never had a fail, and I didn't mean to cut you off, Callie. I just got excited.
no, I'm done.
I was waiting patiently. So every year at the end of the dance season, the girls have these like giant, I don't even know what they're called. We call them packer racks. That's probably their name. And it's what they store their costumes in. And it has their dance shoes, and all during competition season, I keep up with it. But then after the recital, I kind of just roll it somewhere. And I'm like, I don't have to see you again until next year. And I was trying to be good about it. And I forget when I thought I cleaned it out. But yesterday I opened it up to clean it out because we have competition coming up. And I was like, good job, Caitlin. There's only costumes in here. And then I'm digging through the bottom and I lift up the Velcro portion and there's like 13 Hershey Kisses, a bunch of half-eaten almonds, and it's been in my garage where animals live. So fail on my part for not cleaning it out, but win on my part that the animals didn't find the
it.
secret stash. Yeah. So this year when I got to dump it out.
It could have been worse. It could have been like milk or cheese or something moldy for an animal.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Fruit.
Yeah.
I remembered mine, and it's also a fail. My kid just came down with a pair of shorts that I know were not theirs, and this had been borrowed from someone in the fall because they like fell into a pool or something. And I was like, we have seen this family probably weekly since the fall, like WTF. He was like, well, no one reminded me, or we haven't seen them at their house. So now I have to bring, I mean, they're not going to care, but I have to bring this pair of clothing back. Like, hey, remember when we borrowed this in September?
Right.
Yeah.
They'll understand, Charlotte. I've been there, done that. It's okay.
Yeah.
But if they grow like my kids, they won't fit anymore. So the family.
Okay. Moving on to our topic this week, leaving our kids with a babysitter. So I'm going to start off with sharing my personal experience. And I'm a little, I don't know if it's embarrassed is the word, but with my first daughter, Ava, I was definitely a little psychopath about leaving Ava with a sitter. It was definitely being my first. I only left her with family members. It was definitely probably even more intense of just being grandparents. So my husband, his mom or dad, or my parents. And it was like that, I would say, for the first year of her life till, I kind of realized that you can utilize cousins or a friend or someone else. And I went to the extreme of also writing down very intense instructions.
Same.
I remember, I feel like Ava was she even like 2 months old, and we had a friend's wedding to go to. And I left out instructions that were probably like back to front for my mother-in-law. Again, because, it wasn't my mom, it was my mother-in-law. So I trust her, but I was just, again, you know, being very cautious mom. And I mean, I even remember to this day things I wrote. And one of them was, if she starts to get fussy, like I wrote out the shh, 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 like she didn't know, and I remember she looked at the list and was probably like, okay, like I watched, she had her own daycare too at one point. But anyway, so then by the second and the third, obviously, then you release the reins a little bit. But for the first, I just remember my personal experience of just being a little too cautious.
I did exactly the same thing.
Okay.
Same.
Okay.
Same.
I was very nervous to
Yeah.
dive into it, but okay, Charlotte, how was your experience?
No, mine needed a staple. I mean, we didn't really have sitters because we were in the city, and we had a nanny who was always looking for hours because she was only for us a couple days a week. And so if we did go out, we would just have her stay or do that. And that sort of continued until we came out to the suburbs. But I remember with my oldest, when she was, she was little enough that she couldn't talk. And for me, that was the point of most anxiety, because it was like, I'm not going to know if the 3 hours they were with this person was miserable or not. And I do remember leaving her with my mother-in-law. And I think it's what you were saying, Megan. I knew she could do it, but I also knew that she did it very differently than we were doing it. And I remember being like, we try not to say, and this was my mantra as a teacher, we don't say, don't climb on the table. We say, get down from the table. So we give positive. And I just remember thinking, I need to put this out there, or else this weekend is going to be filled with don't, which, whatever, who cares? But at the time I was like, okay, we got to set the boundaries.
Set the tone. Yeah.
Set the tone. That's right. So we did exactly the same thing.
Okay, good.
But did I'll never forget for my first two, I don't even know the first time they ever saw a real babysitter. They were probably like 7, because it was just always family. But did your in-laws, and I'm saying in-laws because my mom knew I would have just lost it on her, would they do things that they thought were probably right, even though you had explicitly said not to? For example, and I can say this because my mother-in-law knows that I tell this story, but she used to say, why don't you put her to sleep on her belly? And I'm like, you can't put an infant to sleep on her belly. I don't care if she cries. I don't care if she has a dairy allergy and her belly hurts. You can't put her to sleep on her belly. And I remember coming home and she was like, she's on her belly in the crib. I hope you're not mad, but she slept. And I was like, what? And I ran upstairs, and of course she was alive and she was fine. But after that, we were like, yeah, never again. You're not allowed to. I don't care if she sleeps.
Yeah. I do remember that, because we used to all sleep on our belly, right? And now today,
with all the stuffed animals, just I have everybody has that picture of them as a baby with all the blankets.
Yeah. The closest that we came to that, Caitlin, was my father-in-law would put them in the front seat, and my husband had to speak to him and just be like, this isn't a choice. Just don't do it. But we also pulled our kids aside and we're like, I know you're excited to be in the front, but we threw my father-in-law under the bus real fast. We were like, he doesn't know anything about anything. Sit in the back.
We actually just experienced that one 2 summers ago and had to be like, that's not a thing. That's not allowed. Yeah. And my kids were like, oops, he. And I said, no, you should have known better.
Yeah, I know. I remember we had a wagon too, and we used to get in the back and we would sit in the back with no seatbelts. My mom even said she would take the carrier, put me in the back of the wagon and I wasn't even seatbelt. And she would drive me to work like that.
Just rolling around.
Times have changed. Now you can't do that. You'll get like the baby taken away.
But I think that my mother-in-law is wonderful. She's a great mom. She's a great nana and everything like that. However, I think that one moment probably set the tone, which is why I never wanted to trust anybody else to watch my children. We also lived in Georgia and we didn't know anybody except family. I remember my neighbor watched them for like an hour probably once, and I panicked the entire time. But for the most part, my mom would rather fly down from Connecticut and babysit than us try to find someone random somewhere. But now once we find a babysitter, we hold on to them tight and don't even want to share them. And we stick with them until they go to college or they are graduated from college and move. And I don't have a problem anymore. But Arbor, I'm so much more lenient with the babysitter. Of course, it always starts out with a 3-page document, but then by the third time, I'm like, and I trust you. Just do whatever works.
Do you have sitters, Kallie? Because for me, the shift was when my kids were old enough to be sort of autonomous, and I just got less. I mean, Miles, I think, would be fine, but it's a different dynamic when they're little.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a different dynamic. And especially I feel like when they're really little, I feel like there's always still that part. I mean, I become far more lenient with all of my baby. I was just like you guys. I mean, like I had the 8 million notes of things that people didn't need to know. But there's always still that little bit of when they're really little, like the story that you told, Caitlin, where you're nervous that somebody's going to do something that you just don't feel safe about. And I think that's sort of the difference of, to your point, Charlotte, where you're like, we don't use the word don't. That's not really a safety thing, right? So there's like the two parts. And I was the same way with my first and my second. Like I wanted the babysitter or whoever's watching my kid to do everything. Like I thought that they had to do everything exactly the way I did it. And I forget where I heard it somewhere that somebody was like, it's actually beneficial for your child to experience other kinds of parenting is not the word I'm looking for, but like guidance. Like it is okay that I think I was actually listening to somebody talking about the way that we talk about food in front of our kids. And, there's all these, things, telling your kid to finish the plate, that's sort of an old school thing. And I think that was the discussion. She was like, if grandpa comes over and he's like, you got to finish your plate or you need 2 more bites until you're done. Like, it's all right. Like that is a single transaction they're having with like that adult. That's not how you're parenting them or what they're seeing all of the time. And so I got a lot better about that being like, it's okay because people are going to, again, the only word I can think of is parent my child different, but you know what I mean? They're going to sort of guide my child different and that's okay. But where I always got, and I still sometimes will get funny is like when it's a safety thing. So like when they're going in the car or if it's an infant sleeping thing, like my youngest is now 6 months. So we're sort of getting out of that, sort of tricky area. But that's where I always would feel the most nervous is when we even have a babysitter that we use. We had her last summer and we have her coming back this summer. She's in college. She's wonderful. We love her so much, but we've never had her drive the kids anywhere. And we're like, I don't know that I want to. And I don't know that I'm like, am I being like overly paranoid? But that's a scary thing. Like she is very mature. She's wonderful. She's great with the kids, but you're just different at 18, like when I drove a car, like I was a mature 18-year-old, but I was like, I drove in a car very differently. And so, there's always just those, like, what do you feel comfortable with?
I agree, Kallie, with the car situation too. That's a whole different ball game when you're going to have someone other than yourself and the grandparents. And if they're young, I don't even think we've done that. I don't like even cousins. I don't even think my kids have been in their cousins' cars without me. With me is one thing.
Right.
And another thing too today with technology and monitors and like the phone, and we can watch. I just remember we had a cousin come over and watch the 3 kids, and we put Nico to bed because he's the youngest, but I just didn't feel 100% about who we chose to babysit. And I do remember logging in to check the monitor and everything was fine. Like everything was good. But a lot of parents also have cameras in their house too today. I don't have that, but I know some parents when they leave their kids with sitters or people they don't know, they have cameras in the living room. They have cameras in the bedroom. What's your thoughts on when you leave your kids with a babysitter Do you think it's a good idea to have cameras in the house?
I've never left my kids for that long of a time where I feel like I'd want to watch them. I've never had anyone stay overnight with my children that's not my parents. But I actually have a camera. I just realized I have one that I could plug in and put somewhere. And I've debated, like, we have to leave Arbor with a babysitter I trust so much, but I debated putting it there just so almost like if Arbor wanted to come over and say hello to me because I'm going to be away at a dance competition all day long, maybe I would do that. But I could see if we had someone new and there was some kind of family emergency where we were going to be gone all day, we couldn't have anybody check in even overnight, that I would set up that camera and probably let them know I put it there. I don't think I would be sneaky about it and like hide it in a bear or something.
Yeah, we don't have cameras either, but also I think it's sort of similar. We've never hired somebody that wasn't all of our my husband and I both work from home. So anybody who's ever babysat our kids when we're not here has been here with us many, many times before that. So we've always felt comfortable. I mean, I'm not like against it. I can totally see if you're especially if it's maybe you're in a position where you have to bring in somebody new and you don't have, I mean, I don't know.
Charlotte, what's your thoughts on security cameras in the house?
We don't have them.
Yeah.
I don't know that I get them. Like, I'm sure there's valid reasons, but for me, I can never figure out what that would be. Like, we don't really have sitters, and my kids are old enough that I don't know. I don't know what I'd be like. My kids would just call me if there was an issue. So we've sort of aged out of the wanting to check in stage, and I guess I just don't need to. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'd want to hear why people have cameras. Is it for?
Well, I can imagine, like you said earlier, when when the child is young enough that they can't really tell you what's going on.
Little, yeah.
When they're young.
Yes. Maybe you get a story. I think about even, my 6-year-old is much better about it. I think about my 4-year-old every time she tells me something that happened at school. I'm like, that's probably like 50% correct. Like everything gets, so if you ever needed to cross-reference, I could see.
Yeah.
I can't imagine just sitting there and watching, but
don't you think some people have cameras just because? Like, I guess
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
what
I'm sure.
thinking
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
is like, when people have security cameras, and this is, I know, a right turn from like babysitting and nannies and all that, but when people just have cameras set up, is it because they're worried that someone's going to break into their house and then they'll have evidence? I guess that's the part of it where I'm like, I don't know
So
that
that's
anything's
why
happening that I care about.
that's we got our camera for free and I set it up in the playroom because it looks at the sliding doors. And the first reason I ever had it there was Brandon was traveling and that door scares me because
Yeah.
there's no way for me to hear or see that someone's breaking in the door. And so I put the camera right there. I never even checked it. But I always wondered that too, why you would set up cameras all over your house. It seems kind of creepy to me. I don't.
Agreed.
I feel like the internet's going to hack it and then watch me in my living room.
Yeah.
That's like my biggest fear. I'm like, I don't.
Okay. So we all agree we don't use cameras for sitter watching. Perfect.
No.
Okay. Okay. Moving on. I wanted to share some stats with the babysitter world here. In the US, a significant portion of parents utilize some form of childcare, with estimates suggesting that roughly 33 to 53% of parents with children under 5, and then 48 to 59% of parents with school-age children rely on family, friends, or neighbors for childcare. Another stat I wanted to share, that when hiring a sitter these days, 97.1% is female and 2.9% is males. I was like, wow, it kind of is true. Not that it's a stereotype, but don't you feel like there's more females than male?
Well, because I don't think boys are like, I need a job, I'm going to go babysit. Where girls, You're like, I'm 15 and I need a job. Oh, I'll be a babysitter. That's an easy one.
Yes. Although I do have to say, I have one friend that has 4 boys, and she always makes sure to hire a male sitter because her boys, just like she said, they relate to him. They're more comfortable, and they ask to have a male sitter to watch them and be with them, which I get.
Yeah.
We had one boy babysitter when we were little, And it was just the excitement that I felt when this babysitter came over was unmatched.
That's awesome.
Who was the boy
Yeah.
babysitter in the Babysitters Club books? Wasn't there one? Like it.
I can't remember.
I'm looking at you, Charlotte, because I feel like
I
you.
read them all, but I want to say there's a second wave of them. Like
No,
I
this
read
was
the
the old ones
original.
though.
I don't know. We'll Google
Yeah.
it. We can
Like
fact check.
Stacy's boyfriend came and helped her once or something.
Okay.
I also wanted to share that 89% of parents had to cancel plans in the last 6 months, and it was due to the sitter struggle of
Oh.
hiring a sitter. Maybe they canceled. I know a lot of my friends, their sitters always cancel on them like a few hours before, and then they're like, okay, we can't meet you anymore.
I cancel on sitters all the time, mainly because they're expensive. And I'll be like, you know what? We don't really need to go and do this, or this wasn't really that important. But it is so expensive for 3 kids to have a babysitter come for a couple hours. And then if you're going out to dinner, you're spending money at dinner. And by the time at the end of the night, I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have just stayed at home and put my kids to bed early.
What do you guys pay your sitters? What's the going rate? This is so regional, I find.
For 3, usually they want anywhere from 20 to 25. It depends on who it is.
Yeah, we blanket pay our like babysitters 25, and that's mostly, we have a few that we could definitely pay a little bit less because they're not quite as like we have a high schooler, but I'm like, I just can't keep everybody's, like we have summer help. And then we have our nannies, we pay higher than that. So I don't feel like I need to like broadcast, not for me, I don't really care, but I don't think it's fair to them for me to broadcast what they're making. But yeah, our babysitters are, and that's like high school into college, or a little bit higher.
Yeah, same 20 to 25. And then my daughters are 12 and 14, and they both babysit here for neighbors. And it's $20. And it's usually, they only babysit between like, Gianna's 12, 2 to 4 hours.
She makes
Ava's older.
$20 an hour.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's not, I see up here we have the mommy helpers who are under like 16 and they $10 to $12 an hour and you're home with them. And then actually, if there's just one child, I pay 18 and I've never had anybody really complain or say they want more, but that's a lot of money for a 12-year-old.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah, she's watching the 2 kids and the parents aren't home. I mean, it's only 2 hours at most. And she took the CPR babysitter course online, so she has that. What's your thoughts, Charlotte?
When we have sitters, it's so rare. My kids we don't really need one. So we only need a sitter if we know we're going to be gone until like midnight or something. And so then it's just a body in the house. And I think it's probably $20 an hour and then we round up. So I don't know, on average, it's probably what you're saying. Also, they're doing nothing. My kids are watching TV. So I don't feel it's like, come spend your night on your phone at my house.
Yeah.
When my kids babysit, I think it's $15 to $20. I mean, my high schooler is probably the only one that does more babysitting, and it's probably about that, 15 to 20. I'm certainly, whatever the parents give her is fine with all of us.
Yes. Yeah. And like you were saying, our kids are both, we have older kids, Charlotte and I agree. The only time I feel like I need to have someone come here, and we just went away this past weekend, was for the staying through the night. We went away and Ava was like, Mom, I got it. We're fine. And Nico, wanted his older sister to tuck him in. We don't need Nana, but I just worry if there's a fire, God forbid, or anything. So she came late, like 8:30, and she did stay overnight. She probably didn't need to, but I mean, I had her here just for safety issues, I guess.
We've always had a landline too. And now that more of my kids have cell phones, it just means I get less concerned. But a landline was always something that we had so that if there was an issue, even the like 8-year-olds could call us, which was reassuring for everyone.
What's your thoughts, Kallie?
Well, I have a question. Obviously, my oldest is 6, so we're not there yet. We now, if Michael and I are going to be gone, we have somebody who could watch all 4, but we typically will have 2 people if we're going to be gone for, I've got a 6-month-old and a 1-year-old. Like that's a 1-person job on its own. So like we literally are at a 2 babysitter position right now. So my question is, at what age did you guys start feeling comfortable leaving a child at home?
I'm not there yet.
Alone?
Yeah, alone.
10?
I think 5th grade, is when I feel like I looked it up and like 12 is sort of the magic number legally.
Okay.
But there were sort of variables like if I'm just running to get someone at soccer practice, so it's going to be an
Yeah.
hour and they can call me on the landline, I'll leave my 10-year-old home alone for a couple of hours because I know he's sitting on his Kindle and reading. We also happen to have neighbors kind of on all four sides. So if the house did burn down, it's like you're running to like
Right there.
Kristen's house or John's house. And then as far as like if when would we go out for dinner, that's probably more seventh, eighth, ninth grade with the caveat that my phone's going to be on the table ready to answer if need be. And we
Yeah.
would feed them and then just say, the timer is going to go off at 9.
Go to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Charlotte, I just realized I said no and I lied right before you spoke because my oldest, I'll leave her home alone, but she's 11 for like an hour and she can message me from her watch, from an iPad, but I would never leave her home alone with my 8-year-old because they would murder each other.
Yes, they would fight.
So solo.
Yes.
Yeah, never.
Have any of you experienced babysitter stealing?
What's that?
I have not gone through this, but I know some of my friends have, where let's say Charlotte's like, hey, Megan, do you have any recommendations for a sitter? And I'd be like, yes, Charlotte, here she is. Here's Jane. Try her out. And Charlotte might pay Jane a little more than I paid her. And now Jane's staying with Charlotte and Jane's not giving me hours anymore. So this is a whole thing, babysitter stealing. What's your thoughts, Charlotte?
I mean, I think it happens. I had someone try to poach we had a part-time sitter that we split with another family, and I had someone try to poach her to be her full-time sitter, and I got wind of that. Even, like, if you meet someone good, I would probably do the same thing. It's like, I don't know. All's fair in love and babysitting, right?
My friend let me have her nanny be our babysitter. And she still nannies for her kids. So we always have to cross-check. Like just yesterday I texted her and I'm like, hey, are you okay if she leaves your house at this time and comes to me? Are you going to be home? I don't want to, steal her away from you. But I did have someone that used to babysit for us. And she said, do you know any other families? Because, you don't need anybody for the next couple months. And I gave her those numbers. And next thing you know, everyone had hired her. And so then when I needed her, she's like, sorry, I'm full. It's like, oh, okay. You're welcome.
What about you, Kallie? Any babysitter stealing going on in your house?
No, we haven't really had that. I mean, typically since we started hiring on babysitters, which we were like kind of slow to the game to do it because we were just nervous. And then I had children during COVID. A lot of the babysitters that we end up using are the nannies that we have during the week. So we kind of like have them on a rotation anyways. But I had somebody the other day come up to me and they're like, our nanny takes my 1-year-old to a play group and they're like, hey, your nanny is so great. And like right away I was like, you can't have her. And like that, they didn't even want to steal her. They just like wanted to know like how we found her. But I just like got so defensive right away. I was like, don't even think about it. I will pay her double what you're offering. Because like when you have somebody good, yeah, you don't want to let them go.
Yes. For new parents out there, I just wanted to share some tips. We have started to use babysitters that aren't family. And for me, I would always ask for references, their experience. And then also another thing is the CPR trained Red Cross, if they've taken that course. And if you do want to do this, but I have not, but I know some people do, have them come over to the house and see how they interact with your child. Maybe like observe from afar. Don't be like on top of them. But this does help so you can see, or go upstairs and let them play downstairs and you can kind of like listen. So those are just some tips. And also if you want to write things out as well, leave a list, not too crazy, but I don't know what your thoughts are on with hiring babysitters. Charlotte, do you do the same sort of things?
A little bit. And this will maybe tie in nicely to, I know we have a guest that we're going to be hearing from in a little bit, because the only sitters that I've hired in that regard were when they were more sort of in that nanny category. And I did use agencies like care.com. And I found that putting a couple sort of specific things in the job description was helpful to see if they responded to those. Like I would always include that we have a dog. And it was always pretty clear which people were just cutting and pasting their responses like, hey, I love kids. I saw your application. I'm interested. if they didn't respond to I'm comfortable with dogs or some of the other things, I was like, you're gone. Meeting them in person for me was huge. And I think to your point, just seeing how they interact with the kids, I was always looking for people that were sort of self-starters. So I didn't want them to look to me to tell them what to do, like within guidelines, obviously, within reason. But I wanted to see that they just were comfortable and sort of took charge. As a nanny, I wanted to see that they would be comfortable, not that I would take advantage of it, but I was like, you're just doing what I am doing. So there may be a day when I need you to like go pick up my groceries. I know your job is to take care of my kids, but this is all part of the deal. And just to gauge their feedback, if they were like, totally, that's obviously, that's great. That was better than, yeah.
Yes.
And I had pretty good luck. I think meeting them in person for something like a nanny was helpful because I was going to be home with them. And so I just needed to get a sense of it. I was always comfortable with people that had worked with small kids, obviously. So when my kids were infants, our first nanny had a baby of her own. So sort of depending on how old my kids are, that's sort of, have you worked with someone that age? Because,
Yes.
when you're the parent of a 2-year-old, they feel like a unicorn, and then so on and so forth.
What about you, Caitlin? What's your experience with hiring babysitters?
I mean, pretty much the same. I always, we like talk on the phone, we FaceTime, or they come to the house before I even hire them. And I want to see how my kids interact with them. But for the most part, I would go through Facebook groups. There's like a babysitter group for my town and 2 or 3 surrounding towns. And there's a lot of kind of fake people in there. It's almost like spam accounts and stuff. So I haven't used them as much anymore. And back when I was using it, I did have some people come by or FaceTime that I was like, oh, we're not actually going to need you because we didn't jive. But I'd say for the most part, the people that we do hire for babysitting are people we know that somebody else has recommended, or our dance studio. There's just so many girls that can babysit or be mommy's helpers. And I find that's really great. I also think that it's really important that you have the whole family meet them, like even your husband or your partner, because it can be awkward to bring someone new in and have them coming and hanging out with your children all the time, and they don't meet your partner until a couple times in and you're not there. And that's happened where my husband's like, she didn't speak to me. She wouldn't even look me in the eye. And I'm like, well, you guys haven't met before. So I do that now.
Yes. Yes. And I heard you mention too, which I just wanted to throw out there, mother's helpers.
Yeah. So
that's like a really big thing right now that I never utilized or had, but.
Oh, it's awesome. And it's last summer we had 2 girls from the studio, and we have a neighborhood pool. I don't want to get in the pool with my toddler all the time, but they're more than happy to put on a bathing suit and get in the pool with the toddler. And they just come, like last summer they would come to Costco with me, and, carting around 3 kids plus someone to help is nice because I can say, hey, watch them all in the cart while I'm going to run down another aisle, or we go to the library, we can all split up. And so that's really nice. And that's what I was saying. They only ask for $10 to $12, which I'm there, and a lot of times I'm still making everyone lunch, but at least I know my children are being supervised while I can go do things around the house. So I like that.
And the nice thing about those guys is that you can, like, a lot of times I have great ideas and stuff that I would do with my kids, but I have to do work or I just don't want to. And so you could get the craft project or whatever, the cooking project set up, and then the younger kids, it's like fun for them too. So it's sort of win-win.
Agreed. Yeah. And I feel like they're big in the summer. I know our town pool, I see them. And my daughter Gianna was like, Mom, I want to be a mother's helper this summer. I'm like, perfect. Do it. Kallie, what's your experience with hiring babysitters?
Yes. So we didn't have to hire a babysitter for the first time until we needed somebody for my second. And she was still pretty young. We don't have family around, so we were never able to kind of like, my mom lives in Hampshire, so she would come down and watch the children, but it was kind of like our first experience ever, like having somebody else come and like watch our kids. And the first time, she was quite young. So I really wanted somebody that had experience with infants. And luckily we found a woman who was studying to work at the NICU. She works in the NICU now, and she still babysits for us sometimes. But after that, I had a really hard time like once we were like our time was, she was just hired for the summer. I had a really hard time finding somebody through word of mouth. And, you know, I was looking for somebody who would be sort of consistent. And so what I ended up using was what I essentially call like a babysitter matchmaking company. And Megan, I know that you chatted with them and we're going to put your discussion with them in here, but that has since been my bread and butter because it's taken away all of the legwork for me of having to like ask around and try to find someone. And I feel like we do have a somewhat unique situation because we weren't necessarily looking for just a one-off babysitter. We were looking for something, you know, more reoccurring, and we've used them since we had our second. We used them with our third and then with our fourth. So like our family dynamic was always changing. But every time we've used them, people are like, what are you talking about? But it's essentially the way that it works is I chat with them. It's just two sisters. I chat with them, you know, now they know me, but you know, it was like telling them about my family, telling them about our family dynamics and my kids and their ages and what we need and like what our parenting style is like. And then she went out and would find people that worked or that she thought would be good. And she would send me their information and she'd be like, which ones of these sound good to you? And then from there, I could be like, oh, I like, you know, I don't know, you know, Jen and Jessica. And then she would go out and interview them for me, send me back all the information from the interview. And then from that point, I would take over. They would come to my house and I would get to meet them. I've had just the best experience because I feel like they're so well vetted. Obviously, she's doing all the background checks. She's doing all of that, you know, in the whatever, but she also just is in the circle of babysitters. So just like how we kind of maybe have a few mom friends and we're sharing baby, she just has this like wealth of so many people that she knows that she can pull from. And I think she's just so specialized at matching the right kind of babysitter or nanny with families that we've just always gotten really good matches. And what I love is when you kind of get down to the end part where you're offering them the job and you're kind of trying to decide rates. Cause that's, I mean, we talked about that earlier, but you're always like, when am I supposed to pay this person? She helps with that part too. Kind of like, well, this person has more experience or less experience. So you could probably pay them that. So it just like, I don't know, it just makes the whole process so much easier. So that's the way that we go now. I mean, like she's basically on speed dial for me. Like if I need somebody now, I have told so many people about this because I feel like trying to find good care is so hard and it can be so nerve-wracking if you find somebody that you don't feel comfortable with. That for me and motherhood has been just like the most amazing thing to sort of like be able to let off of my plate and let somebody else do it.
Hi everyone, Megan here with the Just for Moms podcast. We have two amazing guests today, Jessica and Ashley from Sitter Connect. Welcome.
Hi, Megan. Thanks so much for having us.
Yes, we're so happy to be here.
Thank you for being on our podcast. Tips for hiring a babysitter.
So for tips, it's really about just matching your needs and really expressing what those needs and wants are so that we're able to find a candidate that closely pairs with you.
Day in the life, what do your kids like to do? What are they engaged in? Outside, inside play, certain types of activities, you know, experience level, what's comfortable for the parent. Sometimes they have a comfort level with one age group versus another, or experience level. So that's another one.
And then what would you say, Ashley?
Yeah, so similar. So really just somebody obviously like that is able to care for the age of your like children, right? So understanding their true experience, you know, making sure that, you know, your parenting style works with, you know, what they're accustomed to. Like that's a big piece of it, like understanding how you parent, but also just like overall reliability and engagement as well.
That's awesome. Great tips there. Red flags with sitters. Is there any?
Yeah. Again, reliability, that's something we go through. And then also any safety concerns. It's something we discuss. Another thing in today's world that we really focus on is screen usage, whether that's personal or utilizing the TV while the child is in your care. Obviously, a date night where it's older kids, they get an hour of TV anyways before bed. That's different. But if you're working with, you know, a 1.5-year-old, obviously limited to no screen time would be ideal, and making sure that they truly follow with that.
I know for me, when I've hired sitters before in the past, and now that my teenagers are sitters, number one, I tell them don't be on your phone unless like it's an emergency when you're watching these kids. What's your number one question every parent should ask babysitters that parents often forget?
I think that going through what to expect, that's one thing, is like, what's the day in the life? parenting style. Like if you have something very specific, whatever that style is, and you're trying to work with your child on something, like those are things I think people sometimes forget because they're trying to meet and understand their personality. But then also like, we want you to have that conversation so that there's no surprises when someone's coming into the role.
One of the things we utilize and we really encourage families and candidates is to do a trial. Have the kids hang with them for an hour. Make sure like they understand your kids, understand your household. They have an understanding of the job as a whole, but really for part-time, full-time nannies and even summer care, temp care, have them come for a couple days, a week, and make sure that it's a dual fit so that they know what they're getting into and the family knows what they're getting into.
After speaking with you both, I have to say, I wish I used Sitter Connect. My kids are all older, so I don't really,
Right.
So built in for you,
I had
right?
used when my kids were younger.
I wanted to add to like anyone listening to Just for Moms, we're offering 10% off their first year of service. So if you come to us and your referral, we definitely want to help you get started and have that call, but we'll offer that discount for any listeners.
Great. And they can just mention Just for Moms.
Exactly.
Just for moms.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Kallie had a great experience with Sitter Connect, and I really enjoyed speaking with them as well. Pits and peaks every week we like to share. I'm going to start off because I had a really fun peak. My daughters, teenagers that don't always like to be around me for once. And we walked in a runway show, Hope for Homes, Westport fashionably event, and all the money goes towards Hope for Homes, the charity. We had to wear Splash of Pink outfits, get our hair done and our makeup. You walk the runway. It was really fun. I was shocked they wanted to do it.
They were so cute.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was cute.
I mean, it was, again, a fun time with them. And I don't always get to, I feel like I'm not always liked. So they liked me that Friday night. And it was a great organization and night for the community of Westport. So that's my peak. What about you, Charlotte?
That's your win. I like it.
Thanks.
I have a pit and a peak, but they're sort of like dichotomous. So I'm just going to go with it. So one of my kiddos, do you guys do invention convention at your school?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we do too. The kids have to come up with some invention. It's like a science fair. And they've been sort of working towards this almost for years. Like it's been on their brain. So my sweet kiddo, it was her time for invention convention and she woke up in the middle of the night throwing up.
Oh no.
So she had to miss it. I mean, I brought it in and her brother, actually, they pulled her brother to go and sort of present it to the judges. And I think she'll give it to her class. So hopefully this won't be one of those core memories, but I felt like, every year they would go to it and then be like, I know what mine's going to be next year. Or I know what mine's going to be in 2 years. Anyway, that was a bummer. And then the peak was that I had another birthday party for a kiddo and she wanted to do like a craft project. And so we did a couple of crafts. I don't know if these kids had fun, but it was like we survived. We made it through the party. The crafts were executed fine. They ate, they had cake. It was like, when you pull together a party and everyone leaves and you did it. So that's my peak. We did it.
Yeah. It looked fun. I kind of wanted to do the craft. I saw it. It was very
I messaged her and I was like, she was like, my 13-year-old self would have liked this. I'm like, Charlotte, my 37-year-old self wants to make this craft right now.
Yeah. My DMs were like, share everything. So
my mom screenshotted it. Yep. Sent it to me, said for next year for Annabelle's birthday.
Yeah.
She goes, go find out from Charlotte where to get all this stuff. I said, okay, thanks, Mom.
Good job, Charlotte.
Link coming. Yeah.
Kallie?
What is I have a pit. So my oldest is really into Magic Tree House books right now, but he's not old enough to like read an entire chapter book. And so I'm feeling a lot of mom guilt because I'm having a hard time finding time to read to him because he'll listen to picture books. Like we read a picture books, obviously, to the younger ones before bed, and he'll look over my shoulder. But what he really wants is somebody to read him these Magic Tree House books. And we've bought some audio versions. That works really great. But sometimes he just, he wants mom to read him the book. So I'm trying to find like pockets of time, but I am feeling guilt that I'm like constantly like, in a half an hour, I'll do it. And, and so I just am feeling guilty about that.
Yeah, I get
it. It's okay. There's only so many things you could do in the day, Kallie.
I know. Yeah.
Anyways, thanks for tuning in.
Wait, you didn't share yours.
Oh,
I didn't get to go.
You didn't? Oh my gosh, Caitlin. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
I have a peak.
Oh my gosh.
So embarrassed.
Shame.
Sorry, Caitlin. Please share your
Not
pit or peek. I'm so
important.
sorry.
It's fine.
Oh man.
I have a peek. I'm so excited. I'm going to get my hair cut this week.
That is exciting.
That's exciting.
And everyone doesn't understand. Like, people are always like, your hair's so beautiful. And I'm like, no, it's just like, I have not gotten a haircut since August. And it's so dead. And I can curl it and it looks fine, but it's so dead underneath. It's all knotted and terrible. So I'm going to get a haircut, I think on Thursday. I might have to bring my toddler, but it'll be okay.
So just a trim.
Yeah, a trim. I don't cut it short, but I need to do something with the front of my hair, so it might be a little different. We'll see.
I do
Fashion
think
show,
you have
fashion
pretty-
show, fashion
pretty
show.
Bangs,
Julia
bangs.
Roberts
No,
hair.
don't do bangs.
Oh,
No.
I had bangs.
No.
Caitlin does not look good with bangs.
Okay.
On
Well,
that note.
yes.
Now we're really done.
Just for moms here. Caitlin, Callie, Charlotte, and Megan, thank you for listening and tuning in this week. Leave us a
review.
Yes,
Thanks.
please.
Mhm.
5 stars if you feel the need. Thank you. And talk to you next week. Bye for now. Sorry, Caitlin. I'm
It's okay.
sorry.
Things are planned.